and women make terrible marriages, okay? Because a man is not a husband. A husband's a husband. Now, to be a husband, you have to start off being a man, but I'm just saying is, you can't just go into a marriage and just say, I'm the man. No, you have to be a husband type man, all right? The woman, the same thing. You can't come in here, I'm a woman. And no, you have to become a wife type woman. Husbands and wives can have a great marriage. Matter of fact, if you're both doing those roles right, your marriage will be perfect. Fine, no problem. I mean, you'll handle whatever issues there are. Problem is when you don't stay in your role and you start acting like a woman or start acting like a man. And so you have to be, I know you've heard me say this a million times, you have to be very much aware of the context of the expectations for what you're doing. Okay, where are you at that moment? Who are you with at that moment? What hat should you be wearing? What role are you playing at that moment? And guess what? Sometimes we strip the gears a little bit, trying to shift gears quickly when something happens quickly. Because you could be in the middle of something with your spouse, and then something all of a sudden happens with your child, and you like grind the gears trying to shift into parenting mode, or vice versa. Or you came home from work where you were in woman or man mode, and now you got to switch to husband or wife mode, or mom or dad mode. Which is why sometimes we need transition time so we don't strip the gears and pop a cork. So when it talks about here, first of all, it says, let us be glad and rejoice and give him praise. And so this is about a marriage. Not a literal one necessarily. It's a metaphor for the relationship. This marriage, these commitments between individuals or beings to a certain relationship. And the metaphor being used here to paint that picture for us is the wife. And what is that wife? First of all, it says his wife has prepared herself for what? To be a wife. So you have to figure out what wife is, because you're preparing. So you think, oh, I prepared myself for the kingdom. I prepared myself for forever. I'm keeping commandments. But are you ready to be a wife? Which means that you are a helpmate to your husband, which is Messiah, that we're there to support everything that's his vision to do. I mean, I give out all this information, then I still end up counseling people 6 months later going, didn't I warn you about all this? Didn't I talk to you? Didn't you guys go through it? Why is there a problem? Well, because we really didn't bother because we just wanted to get married. Because that's all that happens. You get this emotion. Don't get married by emotion. The emotion is what sparks things. You see somebody and it sparks something. I may want to spend my life with that person. I find them attractive in whatever way, not just physically, maybe their personality and all this other stuff. But what about paying attention to the things that may be the red flags that you should be paying attention to? And probably, some of these guys look like they're the guys, on the boats or whatever, swinging the flags everywhere, and you don't even notice them. I mean, there's just flags flying everywhere, and you're like, oh, but he's cute. All right, so, and vice versa. He says, sensible. Some of you don't have any sense. You know what the least common thing is? Common sense. People would say to me, that person has no common sense. I would say, absolutely, they've got nothing but common sense. That's the sense that's unfortunately common. If you think of what common means, right? Because the behavior is common. So it makes sense to the common folk who are doing the common things in a common way, everybody. But you think common sense is the logical, rational way that you see the world. But people aren't logical and rational in the way they see the world. So when I talk about this, sober, okay, so that means your mind is clear, serious, so you understand the gravity of things, sensible. It's hard to do all of this stuff when you're in this delusion bubble. You must be taking the red pill, so to speak, and saying, I want to live in reality. Whatever that is. Because, I know at some point in your life, not everybody, most of you said something as braggadocious or arrogant as, well, I just want the truth. I don't care what it is. I just want the truth. Anybody ever say something like that? But is that true, though? Because otherwise we're going to go to a few good men and say, you can't handle the truth. You say you want the truth, but do you want the truth about your finances? Do you want the truth about your relationships? Do you want the truth about your health choices and your eating habits and your activity habits? Do you want the truth about community? What limit are you putting on this desire for truth? Ladies, again, love your husband. You're going to teach the younger women to love their husbands, love their children, be sensible, blameless, workers at home. Okay, your husband's job was not to provide you with bonbons and a couch and a TV, okay? You're expected to work. Not work to provide for the family's needs, but you should be producing something. You're working with the children, taking care of the house, you're doing whatever. I mean, these ladies, when the men were out, depending on how their household was set, some of the men were out there doing carpentry or shepherding or whatever, and then the ladies, guess what they were dealing with? The food. The crops and the gardens and the vegetables and all the other stuff. Stuff was happening that they were sharing. This is all in order that the word of Yahweh doesn't end up being spoken of as being the problem. See, a lot of you will quote scripture at your spouses or whatever, but you're misquoting it. All right? Also, I'm going to point you to the plank and the twig. Never throw verses in your spouse's face unless you're perfect. That means none of you get to do it. Because otherwise, your spouse can throw the verses right back in yours. Because you will have stuff that you don't do right either. Because some of you will be like, well, it says here. Well, then he goes, well, it says here, okay? So who's going to want to have that little battle? You got twigs and planks, and you're smacking into each other. All right? Problem is they're both planks because you're looking at each other. I think we have a real problem, and I know I've said this recently, with what I'll call levels of response. I didn't say that last time. I'm going to call it that way. In other words, if we treat everything the same, then there's no level of response variety to help people know what's more important or more serious. So if you tend to react to this high level about everything, how do they know what really is that serious? Because you're reacting to everything the same. Or if you don't hardly react at all to everything, then how are they ever going to know anything is serious? Because you never react to anything with any level of seriousness. So you need to have this variety of level of response, appropriate, sensible, to what's happening. Okay? Kid knocks over his bowl, spills his cereal and milk on the floor. You flip out as if he just wrecked the car and almost died. It's not the same thing. Because otherwise we're going to run into something that Yeshua was always very much against, is hypocrisy. And let's not end up in that place. Sounds of the speech beyond reproach. That sounds to me like more of an integrity issue in what you're saying be sound. So if you're going to say A when something happens, and then later say A when the same thing happens, and later say A, well, guess what? That's beyond reproach. You're doing the same response all the time to the same thing. But what if you react A to the thing, and the next time you react B, and another time you react D or F or G or H or whatever, right? You're all over the map. There's no soundness to that. Then the person can't figure out how to read you. I don't know what to do. Last time you reacted this way, and the time before that you reacted that way.